Who did this to you, champ?
20 minutes before 8-year-old Christine Martinez whispered her final words, she told her mother, "I wish the Hells Angels would visit my class so they don't erase me completely." And when Josh Ironside Ramirez saw the leaked email from Vista Elementary saying, "Remove terminally ill students from rosters to avoid upsetting families," he mobilized 60 bikers to transform Christine's erased desk into a shrine that would be viewed by 47 million people and force America to confront a brutal question. Why did a dying child have to beg strangers on motorcycles to make her classmates remember her name? My daughters told me, "Dad, if you really believe in these kids, prove it." So here's how I show them. I read out where you're all watching from, and I watch this channel grow. Drop your city below and hit subscribe so I can tell them, "We've got writers in your city now too." Now, let's get into the story. Christine Martinez had been dying for 11 months, which in second grade time meant she'd missed Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day, her 8th birthday, and 247 days of being a kid who existed anywhere except room 347 of Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego. The machines breathing for her cost more per day than her mother Laura made in a month as a home health aide, and the irony wasn't lost on anyone. Laura spent her days keeping other people's parents alive, while her own daughter's heart failed a little more with each forced beat. Christine's school was a cracked iPad propped on the tray table between IV poles, showing Mrs. Henderson's second grade class at Vista Elementary when the Wi-Fi cooperated, and when the school bothered to send the Zoom link, which had become less frequent after the parent complaints started. The first complaint came in October, when Christine's oxygen tube was visible during virtual math. A mother had emailed the principal, "My daughter is having nightmares about the sick girl on the screen. Can't she turn her camera off?" By November, the school counselor had gently suggested that Christine's presence during lessons might be difficult for some families to process. By December, her name had been quietly removed from the class roster. Not officially expelled, just erased from attendance records, class photos, the winter concert program where every other second grader's name appeared in careful teacher handwriting. Laura had discovered the erasure by accident when she'd requested Christine's progress report, and the school secretary had responded, "We don't have an active file for that student." That student, not Christine. Not the little girl who'd spent first grade winning spelling bees and teaching classmates how to draw horses. Just that student. The one whose continued existence inconvenienced the living. The leaked email that would eventually go viral had been forwarded to Laura by a teacher who couldn't stay silent anymore. Principal Dr. Patricia Walsh had written to staff, "Given the sensitive nature of Christine Martinez's condition and extended absence, we are removing her from active enrollment to streamline attendance reporting and avoid creating discomfort among families. Please refrain from discussing her situation in detail with students. Our priority is maintaining a positive, age-appropriate learning environment." Attached, a note from the school psychologist adding what administrators wouldn't say publicly. Focusing on terminally ill students can create anxiety in other children. It's best to minimize attention on that kind of child. That kind of child. The phrase had carved itself into Laura's brain, repeating during the 3 a.m. panic attacks when Christine's oxygen levels dropped and alarms screamed and nurses rushed in with that look that said tonight might be the night. What kind of child? The kind who fought to breathe, the kind who'd endured 11 months of needles and tubes and medications that made her vomit. the kind who still asked every day if she could go back to Vista Elementary, even though Vista Elementary had decided she no longer existed. 47 miles north in Oceanside, Josh Ironside Ramirez sat in the Hells Angels clubhouse at 2:38 a.m., scrolling through Facebook because sleep was a luxury Marines learned to live without and bikers never quite relearned. He'd earned his road name Ironside in Fallujah when shrapnel from an IED had embedded in his spine and doctors said he'd never walk again. And he'd spent 6 months in VA rehab proving them wrong through sheer spite and refusal to accept that his war was over. 20 years later, his back still ached when California's winter rains came. But he could ride, could lead, could exist in the Brotherhood that had saved him when the Corps had spit him out with a Purple Heart and PTSD nobody wanted to talk about. What the Marines hadn't saved him from was being a shit father. His daughter Melissa was 19 now, living in Sacramento. Hadn't spoken to him in 4 years because he'd chosen the club over her dance recitals, her high school graduation, every moment that mattered when she was growing up. He'd told himself he was protecting her by staying away, that men like him, tattooed, scarred, carrying ghosts from Fallujah, didn't belong at school plays and parent-teacher conferences. He'd been wrong, and now it was too late. Which was why, when Josh saw Laura Martinez's Facebook post at 2:41 a.m., the photo of Christine in her wheelchair, oxygen tube in her nose, clutching a drawing of motorcycles and the desperate caption, "She just wants to matter." He read it 3 times before the words fully landed. Then he saw the comments, the prayers and the outrage and the screenshots people had posted of Vista Elementary's emails discussing how to legally erase a dying child from their records. Saw the parent group chat messages calling Christine half dead and a pity project, and arguing that healthy children shouldn't be exposed to that level of medical trauma. Saw one mother write, "If my kid has to see tubes and wheelchairs during Zoom, I'm pulling her out. This is supposed to be elementary school, not a hospice." Josh's hands started shaking, not from age or injury, but from rage so pure it felt like Fallujah all over again. Like watching insurgents target civilians and being told rules of engagement meant you couldn't fire first. Around him, brothers worked on bikes, played cards, existed in the 3 a.m. quiet of men who'd found family after the world had failed them. Josh stood, walked to the center of the clubhouse, and slammed his phone on the oak table hard enough that every head turned. "They erased a dying kid," he said, voice carrying the command of someone who'd led Marines through hell. 8 years old, heart failure. Her school removed her name because parents complained her oxygen tube was disturbing. Now she's got days left and her only wish is that we visit her class so they remember she existed. He looked at 15 brothers, veterans, fathers, men society called criminals who spent every Thanksgiving serving meals to homeless vets and every Christmas doing toys for tots. "I'm going. Who's with me?" Every hand went up. Because when a dying child asked for Hell's Angels, you didn't debate. You showed up. Laura's Facebook post hit 10,000 shares by 6 a.m., 50,000 by noon, and by the time San Diego's evening news picked it up at 5 p.m., it had been shared 347,000 times across America with a fury that made Vista Elementary's phone lines melt. The screenshots of Principal Walsh's email calling Christine that kind of child spread faster than the prayers, and every parent who'd ever felt their child was inconvenient to a system designed to process kids like widgets suddenly had a face to rage about. National outlets called it the erasure scandal. CNN ran a segment. Fox News interviewed education policy experts. And in her hospital room, Christine watched the iPad showing her empty desk in Mrs. Brake, Henderson's classroom, and asked her mother the question that broke Laura completely. Do they know I'm still here? Vista Elementary went into crisis mode. Dr. Walsh released a statement at 3 p.m. Vista Elementary is committed to inclusive education for all students. Recent personnel decisions regarding attendance reporting were made in accordance with district policy and in no way reflect a lack of compassion for students facing medical challenges. The statement lasted 6 hours before a teacher leaked the full email chain showing Walsh had specifically instructed staff to minimize Christine's presence in class materials to avoid parent complaints about exposure to terminal illness. By 9 p.m., parents were picketing outside Vista Elementary with signs reading, "Christine Matters," and "Shame on Walsh." By midnight, 3 school board members had called for Walsh's resignation. And at Rady Children's Hospital, Dr. Sarah Kim, head of pediatric cardiology and the physician who'd spent 11 months keeping Christine alive against impossible odds, received a call from hospital administration that made her blood pressure spike. "We're getting media requests about the Martinez case. Legal wants to remind you that any statements about patient care require approval, and, Dr. Kim, we need to discuss the optics of allowing motorcycle gang presence near our facility." Dr. Kim, who'd lost count of how many children she'd watched die while bureaucrats worried about optics, responded with words that would later be quoted in every news story. "That motorcycle gang cares more about one dying child than this hospital's PR department cares about all of them. If they want to visit, I'll authorize it personally." She hung up, walked to room 347, and found Laura showing Christine the comments on the Facebook post. Thousands of strangers telling an 8-year-old she mattered, she was seen, she wasn't forgotten. "The bikers are coming," Dr. Kim said, kneeling beside Christine's bed the way good doctors did when delivering news that mattered. "I don't know when or how, but I promise you they're coming." Christine's oxygen levels were dropping. Her heart was failing faster than machines could compensate. She had days, maybe hours. But she smiled for the first time in weeks and whispered, "Will they really remember me?" In Oceanside, Josh had spent 18 hours on the phone, with Vista Elementary administrators who refused access, with hospital legal teams worried about liability, with news outlets wanting interviews, with his chapter planning logistics. 15 Hells Angels had become 30, then 50. Word had spread to chapters in Los Angeles, Riverside, Orange County. Brothers were volunteering to ride to San Diego for a kid they'd never met, because that's what Brotherhood meant, showing up when America's systems failed the most vulnerable. At 11 p.m., Josh called Laura directly. "Mrs. Martinez, my name is Josh Ramirez. I'm president of Hells Angels San Diego. I saw your daughter's wish. We're coming to honor it. I don't care if the school says no. I don't care if the hospital says no. We're coming. I just need to know. Is this what Christine wants? Because we don't do this for publicity. We do it for her." Laura was crying too hard to speak at first. Finally, "She asks every hour if you're coming." "She's dying, Mr. Ramirez. Days left, maybe less. And all she wants is for her classmates to remember her name." "Then they'll remember," Josh promised. "I swear on every brother I lost in Fallujah, they'll remember." Vista Elementary's attorney sent the cease and desist letter at 9 a.m. Thursday. Any unauthorized presence of Hells Angels Motorcycle Club members on school property will result in immediate law enforcement involvement and trespassing charges. Josh read it, laughed bitterly, and forwarded it to his own lawyer, a former Marine JAG officer named Marcus Webb, who joined the club after realizing he hated defending the government more than he loved practicing law. "They're threatening to arrest us for visiting a second grader's classroom," Josh said. "Can they? Legally? Maybe? Practically? They'd be arresting veterans for honoring a dying child's wish while cameras roll. That's a PR nightmare they can't win." Marcus paused. "But Josh, you need to understand. If you show up without permission, they will call the cops. And cops have to enforce trespassing laws, even if it makes them look like assholes. You ready for that?" Josh thought about Melissa, about the 4 years of silence, about being the father who chose the club over dance recitals and now lived with that choice every day. "I've been arrested before. I'll survive. What I won't survive is telling an 8-year-old girl we didn't show up because we were scared of lawyers." At Vista Elementary, Dr. Patricia Walsh was learning what happened when bureaucratic cowardice met viral outrage. The school board had called an emergency meeting. Parents were demanding her resignation. Teachers were giving interviews saying they'd been ordered to erase Christine. And the parent who'd written "half-dead pity project" in the group chat had been doxxed. Her employer had fired her, and her apology statement, "I was taken out of context," had been ratioed into oblivion on Twitter. Walsh called her own emergency meeting with staff at 2 p.m., her voice shaking as she read from prepared remarks. "The district has decided to reinstate Christine Martinez to our active roster effective immediately. We will issue a public apology. And, if the Hells Angels request to visit, we will accommodate under controlled conditions." Mrs. Henderson, Christine's actual teacher, who'd been quietly sending homework to the hospital against orders, stood up. "With respect, Dr. Walsh, Christine has days to live. Your apology means nothing. What matters is whether her classmates remember her. So if those bikers want to come, I'm opening my classroom door myself." At Rady Children's Hospital, Christine's condition was deteriorating. Dr. Kim had stopped using words like weeks and started using words like anytime now. Laura slept in the plastic chair, woke to alarms, watched nurses adjust medications that were running out of effectiveness. And Christine, lucid in the way dying people sometimes became, asked the question that would define everything. "Mom, if I die before they come, will you tell them I waited?" Laura couldn't answer through the tears. At 6 p.m., Josh called Laura with news. "We have permission. Vista Elementary is allowing a visit tomorrow during lunch period. Limited time, controlled access, but we're in. Is Christine strong enough for a video call?" Laura looked at her daughter, eyes closed, breathing machine hissing, body so small the hospital bed seemed designed for someone twice her size. "Mr. Ramirez, I don't know if she'll make it to tomorrow." Josh's voice broke for the first time since Fallujah. "Then we ride tonight. Tell Christine to hold on. We're coming." He hung up and addressed 60 Hells Angels who'd gathered in Oceanside from across Southern California. "She's dying tonight. School said tomorrow, but she won't make it. So here's what we do. We ride to Vista Elementary now. We don't go inside. We don't trespass. But we're going to make enough noise that every kid in that school knows Christine Martinez mattered. And tomorrow, if she's still alive, we finish this right." 60 Harleys, rolling through San Diego County at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, made the kind of noise that rattled windows in Oceanside, Carlsbad, Encinitas, and every suburb between. The formation was diamond perfect, road captain leading, Josh at center, sweepers protecting the rear, using the same precision they used for veteran funeral escorts because this was a funeral of sorts, just happening while the child still breathed. They rode north on I-5, then east on 78, engines roaring in unison like a mechanical prayer, every biker carrying flowers or teddy bears or patches they'd made bearing Christine's name. Residents called the cops about the noise. Cops showed up, saw the Hells Angels, saw the flowers, asked what was happening. When they learned it was for an 8-year-old dying in a hospital whose school had erased her, 3 officers joined the escort. At 10:17 p.m., 60 motorcycles plus 3 police cruisers pulled into the Vista Elementary parking lot, engines idling, headlights illuminating the school where Christine's empty desk sat forgotten in Mrs. Henderson's classroom. Josh dismounted, walked to the school's front entrance, and did something that would be filmed by a dozen phones. He knelt, placed a bouquet of roses and a Hells Angels patch, reading "Christine, Forever Remembered" on the doorstep, raised 2 fingers in the biker salute, and bowed his head. Behind him, 60 brothers cut their engines and stood in complete silence. No words, no chants, just presence. For 2 minutes, the only sound was California wind carrying the Pacific salt across suburban streets where families ate dinner and kids did homework, and life continued for everyone except Christine Martinez, who was dying because her heart had decided 8 years was enough. Then Josh stood, returned to his bike, and signaled the formation to move. They rode to Rady Children's Hospital next, parking in formation outside the pediatric wing, creating a wall of chrome and leather visible from Christine's 4th-floor window. Laura held the iPad up so Christine could see, and even through failing eyes and morphine fog, the little girl recognized what was happening. "They came," she whispered, voice so weak Laura had to lean close to hear. "They came for me." Josh called Laura's phone. "We're here. Can she see us?" "She sees you. She's crying. She's so happy." Laura's voice broke. "Thank you for showing up." "Mrs. Martinez, tomorrow we're coming into that school. Legal or illegal, permission or arrest. We're going into her classroom and we're making sure every kid there knows Christine existed. But tonight, tell her tonight, we're here, we see her, and we'll never forget her name." Laura held the phone to Christine's ear, and Josh spoke directly to a child who'd asked strangers to remember her. "Christine, my name is Josh. I'm the president of the Hells Angels. Tomorrow we're visiting your classroom. We're going to cover your desk with flowers and patches. We're going to make sure Mrs. Henderson and every 2nd grader knows you're the bravest kid in California, and we're never, ever going to let them forget you." Christine's response was barely audible. "Thank you for seeing me." She fell unconscious at 11:43 p.m. Dr. Kim called it multiple organ failure, hours left, maybe minutes. But Christine had heard the bikes, had seen the formation, had been told that tomorrow strangers in leather would stand where her school had erased her. At midnight, Josh made a decision that would either honor Christine or get him arrested. "We're going in tomorrow at 8 a.m. School opens at 7:45. We'll be there when kids arrive. We'll stand in that classroom. And if Vista Elementary wants to arrest 60 veterans for honoring a dying child, let them try. America's watching now." Christine didn't die Thursday night, which Dr. Kim called a medical miracle, and Laura called stubbornness, inherited from her grandmother, who'd once survived 3 strokes by refusing to miss her granddaughter's quinceañera. Friday morning arrived with Christine still breathing, barely, with machines doing most of the work, but conscious enough to ask if today was the day the bikers were coming to her school. "They're going right now, baby," Laura said, Showing her the live stream, a news helicopter was broadcasting of 60 Hells Angels riding in formation toward Vista Elementary. Every major network had picked it up. CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, CNN, all showing aerial footage of bikers carrying flowers and riding with military precision through San Diego suburbs. America was watching 60 men society called criminals do what a school district had refused to do: show up for a dying child. Vista Elementary looked like a war zone by 7:30 a.m. Parents had divided into two camps: those who supported the bikers and those who'd signed a petition demanding they be banned from school property for child safety. Police were present, not to arrest, but to maintain order, because when America divides over dying children and motorcycle clubs, things get heated. Dr. Walsh stood at the entrance looking like someone who'd realized too late that erasing a child had consequences. Josh arrived at 7:47 a.m., dismounting with 59 brothers. One had stayed at the hospital with Christine and Laura to broadcast everything. He wore his full colors: Hells Angels San Diego, patches earned over 20 years, the death head logo that made suburban parents clutch their children closer. He walked straight to Dr. Walsh. "We have permission to enter?" Walsh, surrounded by cameras, couldn't say no without confirming she valued policy over dying children. "You have limited access. Mrs. Henderson's classroom. 30 minutes. No disruption to other classes." "We'll be silent as ghosts," Josh promised. "But we're covering every inch of that classroom with Christine's name." They walked in, 60 bikers moving through elementary school hallways decorated with crayon art and spelling bee certificates, and all the evidence of childhood Christine would never finish. Parents pulled kids back. Some applauded. Others filmed, torn between fear of bikers and shame about what their school had done. Mrs. Henderson waited at her classroom door, crying. "She should be here. She should be in that desk right there." She pointed to the back corner where Christine's seat had sat empty for 11 months. Josh knelt, always kneeling, always showing respect, and began covering the desk with flowers. Red roses, white lilies, sunflowers because Laura had mentioned they were Christine's favorite. Then the patches, custom-made leather squares reading "Christine Martinez, 2nd grade, forever remembered." 59 brothers followed, each adding something until the empty desk became a shrine that would make national news photos and force America to ask, why did bikers care more than educators? At 8:15 a.m., Mrs. Henderson's students arrived, walking between two walls of leather-clad Hells Angels standing in complete silence, hands over hearts, showing more respect than most adults had shown Christine in 11 months. 7-year-olds who'd ignored Christine's camera during Zoom lessons now stood wide-eyed staring at her transformed desk. Mrs. Henderson, defying every administrative order she'd ever received, addressed her class with truth. Administrators had tried to bury. "This is Christine's desk. She's been your classmate all year, even though she couldn't be here. She's in the hospital, very sick. These men came because Christine asked them to, because she wanted you to remember her. So today, we're going to tell Christine we see her." She pulled out an iPad, connected to the hospital video call, and turned the screen toward the class. Christine's face appeared, pale, oxygen tube, barely conscious but there. "Hi, Christine," 22 second graders said in unison. Voices shaking because even at 7 years old, they understood something important was happening. Christine tried to smile, tried to wave, managed to whisper, "Hi, friends." Josh stepped forward, kneeling beside the iPad so Christine could see him. "Christine, every person in this classroom knows your name now. We made sure of it. and we're never going to let them forget you." Her final words, spoken so softly the iPad's microphone barely caught them. "Tell them thank you for seeing me." Christine died at 3:42 p.m. that Friday, 6 hours and 27 minutes after watching her second-grade classmates stand beside her flower-covered desk and say her name for the first time in months. Dr. Kim called it peacefully, though Laura would later say there was nothing peaceful about watching your 8-year-old daughter stop breathing while machines screamed alarms that meant nothing because there was nothing left to save. The last thing Christine heard before unconsciousness claimed her completely was Laura whispering that the bikers had come, that her classmates had said her name, that she would never be forgotten. The last thing she saw was the iPad showing her empty desk transformed into a shrine that proved she'd existed. She died knowing she mattered. At Vista Elementary, Mrs. Henderson's students were making cards, construction paper covered in crayon flowers and stick-figure motorcycles, and messages like, "We love you, Christine, and you're the best friend." They'd been working for 3 hours when Principal Walsh entered the classroom at 4 p.m. with the news, and 22 second graders learned what death meant when it took someone their own age. The crying was immediate, devastating, the kind of grief children shouldn't carry, but that Vista Elementary's administrators had guaranteed they would carry by erasing Christine until it was too late. Mrs. Henderson, who'd been fighting administrators for 11 months to keep Christine included, stood and addressed Walsh with words the entire classroom heard. She died knowing her class forgot her until bikers reminded them she existed. "I hope you're proud of your policy, Dr. Walsh. I hope it was worth it." Walsh left without responding, couldn't respond. Because what defense existed for systematically erasing a dying child to avoid parent complaints? The story broke nationally within an hour. 8-year-old dies hours after Hell's Angels honor her final wish. Every network ran it. Every social media platform exploded with the phrase "Christine Martinez" trending worldwide. And in Vista, a second grader named Emma Torres recorded a video on her mother's phone that would be viewed 47 million times. "Christine was my friend, but I forgot about her because the school made her invisible. Then the bikers came and covered her desk with flowers, and I remembered. I'm sorry I forgot, Christine. I'll never forget again." The video showed Emma placing a drawing on Christine's flower-covered desk, and in the background, 60 Hell's Angels standing in silent formation, hands over hearts, honoring a child America had tried to erase. Comments poured in, millions of them, from parents, teachers, survivors of childhood illness, people who'd been that kind of child their schools wanted hidden. And buried in the comments, a pattern emerged. Stories of other children erased by schools prioritizing comfort over compassion. Other families told their sick kids were too disruptive. Other administrators who'd decided dying children didn't deserve to be remembered. At Rady Children's Hospital, Josh sat with Laura in the room where Christine had spent her final year. The machines were silent now. The iPad dark, the oxygen tubes removed, just an empty bed in a blue room where an 8-year-old had fought to breathe and be seen. "She asked for bikers," Laura said, voice destroyed from crying. "Out of everyone in the world who could have helped, she asked for you. Why?" Josh thought about Melissa, about the daughter he'd failed by choosing the club over fatherhood, about how Christine had given him a chance at redemption he didn't deserve. Because kids know. They know when adults are lying about caring. They know when systems fail them. And sometimes the scariest-looking people are the safest bet because we don't pretend to be something we're not. He pulled out his phone, showed Laura something. A text from a number he hadn't seen in 4 years. Melissa. Dad, I saw what you did for that little girl. I'm proud of you. Can we talk? Josh had spent 4 years believing he'd destroyed any chance of reconciliation with his daughter. Then Christine Martinez, a child he'd never met until yesterday, had taught him that showing up late was better than never showing up at all. Mrs. Martinez, your daughter saved more than herself. She saved me, too. The funeral was scheduled for Tuesday at Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church in Vista, and Laura had expected maybe 50 people, family, a few teachers, neighbors who'd been kind. She was not prepared for what arrived instead. 1,500 people, a line wrapped around the block, news helicopters circling, and 137 Hell's Angels from chapters across California, forming a protective corridor from the church entrance to Christine's casket. Josh had mobilized every chapter within riding distance: San Diego, Los Angeles, Riverside, Orange County, Ventura, San Bernardino. Brothers who'd never met Christine but understood what she represented. Proof that society's most vulnerable deserve protection, that dying children weren't inconvenient statistics, but human beings worthy of dignity. The church could hold 300. The overflow filled the parking lot, the street, the adjacent park where someone had erected a memorial covered in flowers, teddy bears, and Hell's Angels patches reading, "Christine, Sister, Forever." News cameras captured it all. Bikers in full colors standing beside families in Sunday church clothes. Tattooed veterans crying beside second graders who'd finally learned their classmate's name. And Laura Martinez walking behind her daughter's small white casket, held up by the same grief that was holding up America's attention. Principal Walsh attended, sitting in the back, having resigned the day before under pressure from the school board. The parent who'd written "half-dead pity project" in the group chat sent flowers with an apology note Laura would later burn. And Mrs. Henderson delivered a eulogy that broke every heart still intact. Christine Martinez spent 11 months being invisible to a system designed to educate her. She spent 11 months asking why her classmates couldn't see her anymore, and she spent her final day knowing that 60 strangers on motorcycles cared more about her dignity than the institution paid to protect her. The eulogy was interrupted 17 times by applause, by bikers raising fists, by parents weeping because they'd just realized how close their own schools might come to erasing their children if illness made them inconvenient. Josh didn't speak, hadn't planned to. But at the end of the service, Laura asked him to, and he walked to the podium with the same reluctance he'd felt giving eulogies for Marines who died under his command. I met Christine Martinez once, through an iPad screen. For 5 minutes, she was dying and I was a stranger, but she thanked me for seeing her, for making sure her classmates knew she existed. Josh's voice broke. I've lost a lot of people. Combat. Brothers from the club. But losing Christine, it's different. Because she didn't die from her illness. She died from a system that decided her suffering was too uncomfortable for healthy children to witness. And that's on every administrator who erased her, every parent who complained about her tubes, every American who thinks dying children should stay invisible, so we don't have to feel sad. He looked at Mrs. Henderson's students, 22 second graders sitting in the front row wearing shirts that read, "We see you, Christine." But you kids, you're different now. You'll remember her. And maybe that'll make you the kind of adults who don't erase people just because they're hard to look at. The burial was private. Just family and the Hell's Angels who'd become family. Christine was laid to rest at Glen Abbey Memorial Park in Bonita under an oak tree in a plot donated by a stranger who'd been moved by her story. Josh placed the final Hells Angels patch on her casket. Christine Martinez, honorary member. When a biker becomes your friend, they're your friend forever. As the casket lowered, 137 bikers raised 2 fingers in silent salute, and Laura understood what Christine had known. Sometimes family wasn't blood. Sometimes it was strangers who refused to let you disappear. The backlash was swift, vicious, and exactly what Josh had expected. Fox News ran segments questioning whether criminal motorcycle gangs should be allowed near schools. Parents' rights groups called Christine's story emotional manipulation, and a blog post titled "The Hells Angels Aren't Heroes" went viral, arguing that honoring one child didn't erase the club's criminal history. Josh didn't respond, didn't need to, because America had already decided, and the verdict was clear in the numbers. $2.3 million raised in Christine's name for pediatric cardiology research within a week. 47 state legislatures introducing bills protecting terminally ill students' right to remain enrolled and included. And 617 families sharing stories of their own children being erased by schools. Stories that had been invisible until Christine made them impossible to ignore. Vista Elementary became ground zero for educational reform. California hadn't seen in decades. The school board fired 3 administrators, implemented mandatory inclusion training, and created the Christine Martinez Memorial Policy requiring schools to maintain enrollment and full classroom inclusion for all students regardless of medical condition unless families requested otherwise. Mrs. Henderson was promoted to assistant principal specifically to oversee the policy's implementation, and her first act was ensuring Christine's desk remained in her classroom permanently, covered in the flowers and patches the Hells Angels had placed there, with a plaque reading, "This seat belongs to Christine Martinez, who taught us that every child deserves to be seen." But the most significant change came from somewhere unexpected, the Hells Angels themselves. At a national chapter meeting in Nevada 2 months after Christine's death, presidents from across America voted unanimously to establish Christine's Ride, an annual event where chapters would visit schools, hospitals, and care facilities to honor children fighting terminal illnesses, ensuring no child ever again felt as invisible as Christine had felt. Josh was named National Coordinator, a role that required him to do something he'd avoided for 4 years, reach out to his daughter Melissa and ask for help organizing the first ride. They met at a Denny's in Sacramento, the same chain where they'd eaten breakfast every Sunday when she was little, back before the club had consumed his life and fatherhood had become something he'd failed at. Melissa was 19 now, studying social work at Sacramento State, looking exactly like her mother, who died when Melissa was 12. The loss that had broken Josh and sent him deeper into the Brotherhood that had saved and destroyed him. "Dad," she said, and the word landed like shrapnel because he hadn't heard it in 4 years. "I saw what you did for Christine. Why couldn't you do that for me?" Josh had prepared for anger, expected it, deserved it. "Because I'm better at showing up for strangers than for the people I love. I don't know why. Maybe because strangers can't disappoint me the way I've disappointed myself. Maybe because being a good Marine was easier than being a good father. That's a shitty excuse. It is. And I'm sorry." He pulled out his phone, showed her the text Christine's mother had sent that morning. A photo of the first Christine's Ride planning meeting, 60 bikers organizing visits to children's hospitals across California. "I can't fix the 4 years I missed, can't get back your dance recitals or graduation, but I can try to be the father I should have been starting now. And I need your help, because this ride, it's not just for Christine. It's for every kid who feels invisible, including you, back when I made you feel that way." Melissa cried. Josh cried. And somewhere in a Denny's parking lot in Sacramento, a father and daughter who'd been strangers for 4 years began the slow, painful work of becoming family again, all because an 8-year-old girl on life support had reminded them both that being seen mattered more than being perfect. The first annual Christine's Ride happened on what would have been her 9th birthday, March 15th, exactly 6 months after her death. 1,273 motorcycles participated. Hell's Angels from 42 chapters across America, plus support clubs, independent riders, and 3 Vietnam veterans who'd read Christine's story and decided they weren't too old to honor a fallen soldier even if she'd never worn a uniform. The route started at Rady Children's Hospital in San Diego, wound through Vista past the elementary school where Christine's desk still sat covered in flowers, and ended at Glen Abbey Memorial Park, where her grave had become a pilgrimage site for families fighting similar battles. Josh led the formation, riding with Laura Martinez in his passenger sidecar, the first time she'd been on a motorcycle. The first time she'd smiled since burying her daughter. Behind them, a hearse carried not a body, but memories. Christine's drawings, her school iPad, the oxygen tube she'd hated, the Hell's Angels patches that had covered her desk. At Rady Children's Hospital, they stopped. Dr. Kim waited at the pediatric wing entrance with 47 children currently on life support or fighting terminal illnesses, each child holding a sign with their name and grade because Christine had taught America that dying children deserve to be seen, named, remembered. Josh dismounted, walked to each child, knelt, always kneeling, always showing respect, and promised what he'd promised Christine. "We see you. We know your name, and we'll never forget you." The news cameras captured it. The viral posts shared it. And America watched 1,273 bikers prove that Brotherhood meant protecting the most vulnerable, even when, especially when, systems designed to care for them had failed. At Vista Elementary, the entire school came outside. Mrs. Henderson's second-grade class, now third graders, stood holding a banner they'd made. Christine's friends remember. Parents who'd complained about her tubes now stood silent, ashamed, learning too late that discomfort was a small price to pay for compassion. And in the classroom, Christine's desk remained exactly as the bikers had left it. Flowers refreshed weekly by students, patches preserved under glass, a permanent reminder that every child matters even when adults pretend they don't. At the cemetery, Laura placed new flowers on her daughter's grave while 1,273 engines idled in respectful silence. Josh stood beside her, Melissa beside him. 3 generations of people Christine had connected through her final wish. She wanted to matter, Laura said. She wanted her classmates to remember her name. I don't think she knew she'd change the entire country. She knew, Josh said. Kids always know. They know when adults are lying, when systems fail them, when they're being erased. Christine knew, and she asked the only people she thought might care enough to do something about it. He raised 2 fingers, the biker salute, the promise that meant ride safe, you're never alone. We see you, and 1,273 bikers returned it in perfect unison. Then, one by one, they filed past Christine's grave, each biker leaving a patch, a flower, a toy, a promise that her name would echo longer than her 8 years had allowed. The last to approach was Melissa, who'd never met Christine, but understood what the little girl had given her. a father who'd learned that redemption started with showing up. She placed a drawing on the grave, a picture of a little girl on a motorcycle riding between earth and heaven, free from tubes and machines and the cruel mathematics of failing hearts. Underneath, in careful handwriting, "Thank you for teaching my dad that it's never too late to be seen." As the sun set over Southern California and the ride dispersed, Josh received a message from Mrs. Henderson, a video from her classroom. Third graders, now 9 years old, sitting at Christine's memorial desk, taking turns reading aloud from a book they'd written called "We See You, Christine's Story." Every page included drawings of motorcycles, flowers, and a little girl who'd taught them that being kind to invisible people was more important than being comfortable. The video ended with 22 children saying in unison, "We see you, Christine. We'll never forget." Josh forwarded it to Laura with a message, "She's not erased. She never will be." And in San Diego, Sacramento, Los Angeles, and 42 other chapters across America, Hell's Angels made plans for next year's Christine's Ride, knowing that one dying child's wish had become a movement, a promise, a reminder that sometimes the most important thing you can do is refuse to let someone disappear. Because when a biker becomes your friend, even if you only meet through an iPad screen, even if you die 6 hours after they cover your desk with flowers, they're your friend forever. And forever meant Christine Martinez would never, ever be forgotten. If you believe that dying children deserve to be seen, not erased, and that sometimes the scariest-looking people care more about the forgotten than the systems designed to protect them, like and share this story. Subscribe now for more stories of brotherhood, compassion, and the kind of courage it takes to honor one child's final wish when everyone else looked away. Also check out the 2 videos showing on the screen right now, specially crafted for you.